So you see all these things, just tap those, that'll help to compress those. Still being mindful of where the spirals are, because when you throw it out, the spirals need to be going this way. Remember that. Okay. So for this mug, we need this, and we'll need textures. The textures are all up in this cart right here. There's a whole bunch of them. There's rolling pins. There's just random things. There's some letters, other random things. Don't really need that. There's some clay stamps. There you go. Okay, and these are pretty much all impressed or stamped textures. So we're going to impress them or stamp them onto our pieces. So I'm going to throw this out. You can throw out your clay and then go get your textures. On textures, it just seems so close today.
It always seems so close when it's so far away. What?
It's like the moon, right? What was I saying? Oh, on textures. I don't know what I was saying. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I always throw out the long way first. Okay, get past what I need, and then I do the width.
The blue has rubbed off.
It'll be fine. So on your textures, you need to decide what you're going to do. Some of you might want to bring textures from home. The thickness for this should be about this thick. What was that? Sorry, the thickness of a measuring stick. Textures from home, you can use your shoe. There's lots of things you can use what I have. But the 4 types of textures are impressed or stamped. They are additive or embellished. They are carved or removed. And then sculpted. So you can do any of those. Sculpted is different than a texture, but it usually will take lots of time. The reason why we're doing textures is our glazes are going to interact with these textures. So there's a couple of mugs back here. If you'll pass those around, right behind you there. Each one of those on the outside, that's one glaze. So that one has little light spots where it goes to the edges. This one has, I think, 3 colors on it. So as you push it, it clouds up or it pools and gets darker. And so anytime there's a texture, glazes will do something with it. Okay. When I make a mug, I like to trace out my form there, my template. And mostly I'm focusing on where my middle is going to be. And then I put my textures on. If I put my textures on after I cut it, so let's say I have this nice clean cut right there. See if we can't get you to see that. Nice clean cut. And then I come in and I push that down. It kind of bends that edge. And as it bends that edge, you'll have a nice clean cut, and now it'll be warped. So we put our textures on, then we cut our piece. Okay? It just seems to work better. All right, so I have my template there. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do for texture. I'm going to throw this guy right there. Well, that's going to look amazing. Bring it right here. I don't know. I don't like to put too many textures up where my rim is going to be, just because when I'm drinking, I don't want to have the texture make it so that I can't seal and drink properly. It's not that big of a deal, but just I don't like to.
Unless you have one of those prank cups that have like a little hole.
You could, and that's what the textures can do, is it can prank you. and then you'll drool. So we're gonna roll this on there. Okay. On textures, you need to do 2 different types of textures total. 1 per each mug, 2 on one mug, 1 on another. Every mug has to have a texture, but if you only want to do stamped on one, you can do only additive on the other. Okay, you choose what that looks like. Now I'm going to put this on here. Now on these mugs, I like to make it so that the seam disappears, so there's not an overlap. Okay, an overlap would look like this. See how those 2 pieces of clay overlap each other? One overlaps the other. So that's an overlap seam. Perfectly acceptable. We'll talk about it as long as it looks on purpose. And there's lots of reasons why you might want to do an overlap. Yeah, aesthetic reasons. But I'm going to cut straight up and down on my top, straight up and down on my bottom, and then it's really important because I want them to overlap that I'm going to cut an angle or a bevel. So what that looks like, if I have a flat piece of clay, if I just cut it straight up and down, it's just like this. So it just goes together just like that. But if I bevel it, I'm going to come at an angle, can't see it there, and cut that at an angle. And then when you look at it, see how there's that angle, and then when they overlap, it keeps the same thickness of our clay, but it also gives us enough surface area that we can put the clay together. So I do that by, I still have my template on here. I'm going to cut in, and then I'm going to cut out. So they're going the same direction. It's really important that they go, if you cut them like this, when you go to overlap them, they'll be touching on the points, or they'll be touching on the back side of that. So right there, cut in, 27-degree angle, exactly.
If you mess it up, it's like
Yeah.
dot
You
points.
get yelled at.
Yeah, I'll come check your angles, and I'll be like, oh, that's a 29.25-degree angle. I'm sorry, that's 7 points. Sorry. I don't make the rules.
But I do.
Oh yes, I do make the rules. No, I don't have any idea what angle that is. We could check, but I'm not worried about it. It should be pretty much similar, and it shouldn't be straight up and down, and it shouldn't be really flat. Okay, I'm gonna set this over here for my bottom. Now, I'm gonna come right here, and I'm gonna line that up with my table. In all of our cleaning the last couple of days, we found 1 serrated rib. Yeah, 1. And last year we had like 20.
Yeah.
So there's some somewhere, hopefully, or they got thrown away. I do have a few more on order. So if you find one of these, just keep it out. We'll use them. I love these for making mugs because I can come right here on my edge,
It's like placing on tiles.
and I can just run that there, and then run this one here, and it just gives me a nice quick score. And now I'm going to grab some slip. Now there's a bucket over there, it's named Recycle, it's gray, it's on the floor. That's a bucket full of slip. So if you ever need more slip, you can just grab some from over there. I like my slip to be fairly stiff. I don't like it to be runny. And I put very little on. Some people like theirs to be very runny, but I like mine to be,
Nothing happened.
Oh.
it wasn't caught, oh, it was caught on tape.
Don't worry, you can cut out the clip.
It'll be fine. I don't care one way or the other. All right, now that that's scored and slipped, I'm gonna lift this up. Always be careful as you lift. You don't wanna mess it too much, the rim. And I do this towards me, like this, but I'm gonna do it away so you can see what's happening. So I call this zippering, and I start to line that up and get that pushed together. But I zipper from the top. So I come in here and start to push that down. It's almost more like a zip lock than a zipper. A zip lock, which is also a zipper. Like a bag. So push on that. I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to push on that side. Compression. Less moisture, less water, less slip, but compression. So there is some slip in there, but I want to compress that. Now, I'm going to take my wood knife.
What are those numbers? 50 and 750?
That's a great question. I wrote them. I don't remember why. I don't know. So I'm going to take my wood knife and I'm going to come in. I'm going to support the outside and I'm just going to gently compress and manipulate the inside. We want that to be pushed together real well. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the other inside. Okay, on the outside, it opened it up just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to hold on the inside and I'm going to compress that. Now, a couple of things for you. I can see the seam, yeah. You bet. Is if you want to make that seam less visible, I do two things. Sometimes I'll run a texture up it, and then other times, almost always, I put my handle where the seam is, so it just automatically makes it disappear just a little bit more. So to run a texture up, here's our texture. You can take a wood knife, you can take a bigger paintbrush, that might be a little small, or something like this, and these are up here, I'll show you in a second. And you're going to hold it right there, and you're going to push against it and run that up the seam.
So that's the only time you break the rule of doing it before you cut it?
Yeah. I mean, you could do it afterwards, but you have to have something supporting it. And if you do it all over, it's going to manipulate everything so the top's not flat or the bottom's not flat. This one is not that big of a deal because one, that's where the handle's going to go. So even if I did push it and it went up, it's okay. All right, I'm going to true this out. So this is a little planter. There's a couple of them around. There's a bigger one. And I'm just going to set that right there and twist that. Kind of opened up my top there. And then I'm going to do it on the bottom and just gently round that. And that'll help to keep it in a circle. Your pieces are going to warp a little bit and that'll be okay, but you want them to be in a circle. Now you can make them into an oval or any number of other shapes, but we'll just go from there. Now I'm going to put the bottom on. Score it. Add a little bit of slip. Grab my bottom. The bottom can have texture on the foot.
You're too perfect. Just kidding. Oh.
Okay, it can, but not on the inside. You don't want it on the inside. Think about throwing hot chocolate in there. It sits for a couple of days, then you go to scrub it out. You have to scrub it out of all that texture. Okay, don't. It'll be better if there's not texture in there. But on the underside, texture, no texture, your choice. So we're going to take this. We're going to gently, carefully flip it. This is still workable. If I squeeze it too hard, it's going to squish. I just set it down there, wiggle that. That's going to leave a little circle, and I'm going to come in and score that. That's how I know where to score. And then I take this and I flip it back over, work that in, like so. And I'm going to cut this, and I like to cut these at an angle or a bevel again. And there's 3 reasons why I do. The first reason is it starts to compress the seam automatically. That's so it seals it up. The second is it gives it a place, my big mug here, for glaze to pool. Now at the bottom here, you can maybe see that. See how there's this dark line of pooling glaze. This glaze ran more than it was supposed to. And because of that angle change, the clay had to think before it moved on, right? It's pooling up there. I call it thinking, like it's just chilling going, how much glaze? Oh, too much, now I'm gonna run over the edge. Or, oh, lucky him, it was just right. And it just pooled up. So that angle change makes it so the glaze has to pool up somewhere. And again, if it's too much glaze up top, and it goes down, it'll stick. Then when you go to pull this off, it takes a big chunk of your piece with it. Sad day for you. Unless there's a hole in the bottom. I guess you could just hold your finger there.
You just angle it.
Hot chocolate.
Okay, and the third reason is it looks better. It cuts a little angle in, and that adds a little bit of a shadow underneath it, which makes your whole mug look lighter, so it just looks nicer. It's an aesthetic thing. So I'm going to cut this at an angle 32 degrees.
0.16.
Nope. Mathematically, that's impossible. No, it's not actually. Okay, then I'm going to just gently flip it over. Now, some of us will want to smooth this out, and you're going to grab a sponge and water. Please don't. You're going to create some problems. Do come in and just use your fingers to compress. If there's some areas that you're like, I want to clean that up with water, wait till it's leather hard, then come back and refine that with your sponge. Okay, I'm gonna true this out again.
Kind of looks like a flower pot, man.
It kind of is a flower pot. But these are the kind, like if you took, you went to Maverick or Holiday and got one of their coffee cups or hot chocolate mugs or cups and cut it and cut the bottom out, it would look like that. Okay, it has that little arch on the bottom and the top, and that's what gives us the taper. Now, for you, this, you're not gonna put a handle on this right now. It's gonna be hard to do, it's so soft. And so, let's say it's today and you're finished, you're gonna put that in a bag, and on Tuesday you'll put a handle on it. The handle will go on, I made this last class period, when it's a little bit more firm. So, I want you to look at these. This was last class. A little bit of movement, not much. This is this class, a lot of movement, okay? You don't want to add a handle to this because you're going to be pressing on it. It can be done, but I recommend not. Your choice. Okay, set that aside. One more thing I want to show you. On the inside, I want to clean up that seam. So I take my wood knife, and the spoon comes this way, and it's going to go to the outside, and I'm just going to hold on the outside and just gently compress my seam in. We just want that to be nice and cleaned up. And then if you want from there, you can take a paintbrush with a little bit of water, very little, and smooth that out, just a tiny bit. Okay, now I'm going to set that aside. Okay, we'll get to put a handle on this in a minute. Let's do, and again, these are things you should be taking notes on. Again, our brains are pretty amazing, but for some of you, you'll be 2 weeks out before you start on this, and you'll be like, that was so long ago. So, kind of remember that.
Well, you could always put the video on Canvas.
I could, and I can. One of the things about putting it out there is I don't want a lot of people coming to me and going, is this an assignment? But
Put at the top, not an assignment.
I think I did that with this class.
Yeah, but then people don't know how to read house still last week.
That's fine. And then I'll just laugh at them. Okay, a cylinder mug. So our cylinders are over here. There's a whole box of them. And so for every class, you should have plenty of options for cylinders. You choose what size, how tall. Okay. So these are good sizes. This is the size I like to use. It makes a good mug. Because, yeah,
Just a quick question, can we not use like the really big one?
you can, after you've made one of these medium-sized ones. So, here's the one I'm gonna use. Here's a smaller one. This white one's just a tiny bit smaller than that, but they're basically the same. As for height, if you want something, where'd my pen go? If you want a mug that this actual height, you've got to get a taller cylinder because you have to leave about an inch at the top for when we want to remove this from our clay. So this one you have that much of the height to use, and you need to leave that much so you can grab it, okay? It's not that big of a deal. I make most of my mugs about 5 inches tall. That makes a good sized mug with this. But you can go taller. So we'll send that over here. Next thing you're gonna need a piece of paper. And then you're gonna need some of this paper. Now, this is newsprint. It'll be on this cart when we start this project. You do not need a full sheet of newsprint. You need a half a sheet. So you can cut it, you can fold it in half. It doesn't have to be perfect. Really not perfect now. And then we're gonna just cut that. That was a terrible fold. What?
If you compare it to a first grader's, it's better than,
At least you're trying. Well, about the same. I'm just kidding.
Okay, we're gonna take the flat end, not the end I cut, the flat end, and we're going to roll it up on my cylinder. Now, this is super important. When you go to roll this up, you want the flat end to be touching the bottom. That's great. You do not want to tape the paper to the cylinder. Do not tape the paper to the cylinder. Okay? We're gonna roll that up. And we roll it up pretty tight, or tightly, depending on who you believe is in charge of our grammar. And then you're going to tape the paper to the paper. Okay? So the paper can be taped together, but the paper should not be taped to the cylinder. And in a minute, we'll show you why. Okay. Now, we have our piece of paper here. So this is the newsprint. We wrap it. And then I'm going to measure. There's other ways of measuring, but this piece of paper is going to be really good for us. So I'm going to measure that around. And where it overlaps is the absolute minimum my clay can be to wrap around this cylinder. Now, there's a law of something, and I don't know what happens, but the thicker your thing wrapping around, the shorter it becomes. So it can be, I can wrap this paper and it's exact. I can wrap my clay around and it'll be short. So we have to add extra. Okay, and you're gonna want extra anyway. So from here, I'm sure there's a physics law for what it is, but
It's called evaporation.
no, not yet, because it's not about, anyway. Right here to right here is how much, so I'm gonna add 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So to wrap around is 11 inches. Now, anyone remember how many inches I told you had to throw out for this?
A lot.
32.
Just a few.
Okay, so if we went right here and marked it, there, there, and then I come around, bring it there. Okay, 11 inches plus that much, which is about 9 inches, is 20 inches. Since you have to throw out extra, I said 22 to 24 inches. So if you're gonna do this, you have to do 22 to 24 inches. If you want your mug to be 11 inches high, which is right there, you need to throw out about 15 inches of clay. So 15 by 22, 24.
How much clay is that out of?
That's probably gonna be about 6 pounds of clay.
Like off of it, how like tall would it be?
So 2.5 of those, something like that.
Like half the block?
About a third. Okay. But do a smaller, medium-sized one first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, back to this. Now I need to figure out my height. Now, if you fold a piece of paper in half, that's 5.5 inches right there. Okay, and if I put this down here and mark it, I go, maybe that's a good height. It's probably a little taller than I like. Bring it over here, about where it's at. I'm gonna make it a little bit shorter. So, back here, that's my absolute minimum, but we know I need more. And then I'm gonna put this on here and go, I'm gonna make it about that tall. Run that line over, it doesn't have to be exact. And that right there, plus a little bit, is what's gonna wrap around my cylinder, okay? So I need to throw out more than that because I need to taper my edges, plus I need a bottom, and you can throw the bottom out separate. So usually for a gray cylinder, for me, I throw out a sheet of paper. That's my minimum. That gives me plenty to work with. Again, if it's one of the smaller ones, less. One of the bigger ones, more. And we're gonna throw this out. I'm gonna throw it out my length first. So 11 inches. We have our paper to check. Oh, look, we're good. One more throw, easy measure. And now we're gonna go our width. Okay, I'm going to set that on there, and I have to decide what am I doing next. If I'm adding impressed textures, I need to do that right now. If I'm doing additive textures, what kind? I can put some on now and roll it up, or I can add them later. I like to add them later. If you're doing embellishments, add them later. If you're doing carving, do nothing now, right? And sculpting, you can add some texture or whatever you're gonna do. So I am gonna add some texture. So I'm gonna come right here and I'm gonna trace out my basic dimensions. You can be more exact than this, but I'm mostly worried about, again, my center, where the middle's at. Because the middle is right across from basically where the seam is. And so I want for me, I want whatever's highlighted to be there. And there's a reason for that. When I make mugs commercially, so to sell, here's your first rule on handles. Don't ever grab a handle until it's fired twice. Okay, if I grab this right now, it might pop off. But anyways, when I go to sell stuff, I don't know if you're left-handed or right-handed. So I'm gonna put all my decorations straight across from the handle so someone can drink this way or someone can drink this way. I don't wanna put texture here just hoping you'll be left-handed, or texture here hoping you'll be right-handed, okay? All right, gonna add some texture. Let's get some new textures. Let's do some flowers. Start right here in the middle, pull down. That's so good. Let's just use this again, run that over the top. There's these little pressers here, and you can take them, put them there, and then I have these rollers. They're in the texture box as well. And I usually use the round side of this. Yeah. Yeah. Not the flat side. The flat side is different, but there's a kind of a roundness to it. And I'll just come in here and roll that out. Perfect. It's like a Western motif. Okay. Now I'm going to set this on there, and this is something you should write down. You need a flat bottom, a square side or a flat side, and a square and flat top. And then one side is long. So it's longer than you think it should be. So we're going to start with the flat bottom. I'm going to pick where that's at. I'm going to throw my paper down there. Then I'm going to put my measuring stick on my paper so I can get that nice straight edge. And then I'm going to use my needle tool to cut that. I keep my paper there. I'm going to come over here to my left side, and I'm going to cut one of my sides. So the paper is a 90-degree angle, and we want a 90-degree angle. So I just leave my paper there, and I'm going to cut that there. Now, this is where I get my height at. So how tall my piece is. And because I want it from this line to there, I'm just going to line that up so it's flush or flat on the bottom there. And then the marking is going to be where my first cut was, and I'm going to put this on the top. The two most important cuts are your top and bottom, and that they're parallel. Okay? That's why we do one cut that's straight up and down. I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to cut straight across. I like to use my wood measuring stick because it gives me a nice solid surface to cut on. If I just use my paper, I'm going to be wiggly. Okay, and I'm going to keep this area long. Really important, because as it wraps around, we want to have extra clay to work with. Pull this, pull this, pull this, and pull this. Okay, so bottom, side, top. Oh, so you can see that. When I flip this over, I want to make sure that my top is away from me. Okay, and I have to flip it over, otherwise my textures will be on the inside of my mug, not the outside. And it happens, and it's pretty funny when it does. So outside. Now, from here, we get to decide, are we going to make our clay, the seam disappear, or show? And on our tripod mug, I'm going to make it disappear, and we use this same method for that. So I'm going to make it show like this. Okay? And you choose what it looks like. And to make it show, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to wrap this up. I just roll it. And then if you look, do you see how we have all that overlapping clay? So an overlapped seam is perfectly acceptable, but you have to make it look intentional. If I were to just throw that on there right now, it doesn't look intentional. It's kind of ugly.
That's slow.
Kind of sloppy. And so what I'm going to do is I might mimic something. So I could carve a flower into this. I could do some of these triangular angle things. The flower kind of has these little swoops like this. They kind of drop like that. So maybe I'll do that. So I'll come here and swoop it. Okay, kind of like waves. Do you see that? And I'll kind of mimic what the flower is doing. And so I barely cut through. I didn't cut all the way through. What I'm going to do is open this up. Now, as you're opening your clay, do you see how that starts to roll? If you're having a problem with that, grab a little piece of clay and just hold it there so that you can kind of control your clay. Now I'm going to open it. I'm going to move this clay and let that drop. Flip that over. And now I'm going to cut this. And that will look more intentional, which will be a good thing. Then I'm going to gently flip it back over. Always being mindful of what's going on in front. It's kind of messy, but right in front of me is clean. So just be mindful of that. I'm going to wrap this up. Oh, no. If you can see, where are we at? You can barely see. There's this crease right here. That's where it overlapped before, okay? And so that gives me how much how much of a score I need to put on this. So I need to grab I'm going to come in here and score that. Also right here, I'm going to score on the opposite side. Because when it overlaps, it's lapping on the opposite side. Then I'm going to add, I put my slip there, a little bit of slip. And I'm going to roll this up again. And when I do it, I'll roll it up. And when it goes to overlap, I'm just going to kind of press down and rock that. And it should seal up pretty well. Okay, I didn't kill it. I didn't slam that down. Just a nice little press. I'll roll it together, and that should be good. There's a few things that can be cleaned up. We'll wait till it's leather hard. We'll come in with a paintbrush and just kind of wipe that down. Now we're going to do the bottom. Score that. I wouldn't put stuff down on the table. If I put it down on the table and I roll it, you're actually going to widen out your circle, and then it'll be really loose. So I like to hold it. If you really need to put it down, underneath some of these glazes, there's a box of these little foam pads, and you can set stuff there so it's kind of cushioned. So up to you. I just like to hold mine. Add some slip. Oh, hopefully you have a piece of clay for your bottom. If you don't, you should throw that out before you start doing this. I'm going to set this on there. Pull it off. I'm going to score it. Okay, and then I'm going to set it back. Now, so important right now. A lot of people will grab their cylinder in there and they'll push down on their cylinder. And if you push down on your cylinder, it's going to be a cookie cutter. So you're going to push down and it'll be stuck in like that. And you don't want that. Yeah, you could blow that out. But what you do want to do is grab your clay, kind of wiggle that into place. Then we're going to cut this at an angle again. Why do we cut it at an angle? It tapers it to do what? To pull the glaze. What's another reason? To compress the seam. What's another reason?
Looks nice.
It looks better. My opinion says it looks better. I like how there's a little bit of a shadow under there, and it just feels better. It looks better. So we'll clean that up. Gently pressing. If there's something really wrong and you can't figure out what to do, come find me. Like if you cut really, really steep in. So right now I'm right here. If you cut really steep, you'll actually cut a hole into the bottom and you can start over. Okay. Right now is the best time to put a handle on this mug because I have the cylinder inside of it. I can press against that cylinder and that the clay won't bend too much. Let's say it's today, it's the end of class, and you're like, I don't have time to put a handle on. You'll take this out, like I'll do in a minute. Put it in a bag. When you come back on Tuesday, it'll be leather hard. You can put a handle on that. Okay, but now it's a better time. But we're gonna set this aside. Actually, we're gonna make handles right now. So, take my clay, wedge it up, and the way I'm going to show you to make handles will give you a consistent handle that works and functions well. It looks pretty good and has the potential to look really good. Some people will just take their slab of clay and cut out a strip and be like, that's my handle. We call that a bacon strip handle, and they're ugly. Okay, they will flop. They don't hold any weight, and so I want you to at least try these handles. So I'm compressing that clay. Now I'm going to work this into a coil. I'm just kind of squishing that around, and from here I'm going to roll it. Now, as I roll this, make sure your area is clean. I'm going to push it from my fingertips to my wrist. I'm going to kind of like throw it back and forth. I'm not pushing 100% all the time. I'm not on that all the time. If I push it all the time, it's going to make kind of an oval or a square, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to kind of throw this back and forth. And when I see or feel that there's a thick spot, I move to that and just keep that moving. As it starts to get too big for your workspace, you just go right ahead and cut that in half. If you want, you can then share that with your friend. Throw this. And the diameter of where we're going to start is just a little bit thicker than one of my Sharpie or my dry erase markers. Okay, so right in there. If you're making a bigger mug, you want to go thicker, but not too thick. You still want it to be manageable. So as I start to get out here, we're about there. It's okay if there's some weirdness to it. We're going to fix that. Okay, now height-wise. On a mug like this, you got to think about how do you want your handle to look. So if you want a handle, that's about a 2/3 handle. So it starts at the top, ends about 2/3 down, maybe a little bit further. So you measure where that's going to be, and then you add probably 10 to 15%. So for this, I would add just to the end. So this piece of clay is about that tall, maybe a little bit taller. So I would go, okay, and I'm going to cut that right there. There are other types of handles. This is, I would say, is a full handle. So I would have measured, that's the full needle tool, and then I'm going to add about 15%. You can add more than that. You don't want too much more. But just think whatever the height and look at it and go, I just need to add about that much. Okay. There are other types of handles. This is what I call an O or a D, an O or a D ring. And you'll be able to put 1 or 2 fingers in there to hold that. I made this last class. It's a square handle. Okay, square handles, O handles, you've got to make in advance. This has to sit, otherwise it won't support itself. And so this has been sitting, so this is a good handle to go on now. Okay, and I'll show you how to make that. Let's see, what other types of handles can you think of?
What if you make a handle and you want to sculpt something like
Yeah. So just kind of think about what the handle is or what the sculpture is, and then how the handle relates to that. The handle should still function, as in hold, but let's say it's a serpent of some sort, a snake. It can come down, instead of being straight up, it can kind of come to the side, because it'll kind of loop down and around, and over here's the snake's head or something like that. Yeah, if it's a bird's leg, right, you can sculpt that and then attach it. Or, I don't even know what you're thinking, so, yeah.
Are you against like putting the handles like sideways on the mug? Like that's like a genuine question too.
No, my mind is blown right now. No, I don't care.
Sweet.
So you're thinking, so you can hold it like this and
Yeah, like
trough that sucker?
like almost like this, but sideways, you know. So you pick it up like that, you know.
Well,
Instead
of
of
course,
like,
Joshua, you're
instead
gonna
of
do
like
that.
this, or
That's
like
what?
pick it up like that, or like.
You know what?
that.
I'll tell you what, do one normal and one like that.
All right.
Okay, I like to taper my handle. So tapering for this means I'm going to turn it into a carrot. So I'm just hanging out in one spot. And you see how the top and the bottom are different now? Okay, so I like to taper it. Now, we start out with something that's round because it's stronger. As soon as we make it flat, it becomes weaker. If we start out with something flat, it's very weak. So just keep that in mind. Now, I can add texture. I don't have to add texture to a mug or to a handle. That's up to you. So, but if I add texture, I can push that up. Okay, there's that texture. I usually put the texture on the outside only, but you can put it on both sides. Now, that is flatter, but you see how it's still round at the same time. So there's some strength there. Now, when we make a handle, it's really important that we massage the handle and don't just go, there's my handle. Because as beginners, you're gonna do this and then you're gonna be like, no, I like it like this, and then pretty soon it's not gonna hold itself, right? And then you're just like. So for you, add some texture. Let's put this on both sides because we're living on the wild side. What you're going to do is you're going to start about in the middle and you're going to kind of compress and massage this into place. That way, as you do that, and it doesn't take much, instead of breaking the bond between clay particles, it compresses them, and so it'll hold. Now, if you keep flopping this back and forth, it will break. But that's a good start for a handle. And I'm going to take that, I'm going to set it aside. You can set it down like this. You can set it on its side, whichever works best for you. I usually set them on my side. Okay, let's do another one. If you start to get some cracking, and some of us will, especially because you're going to work probably slower than I do, and there's cracking in your clay, and there's not here, but if you take a sponge, squeeze it out, hold at the top, and you're just going to compress and actually just kind of throw that handle. We do that on all sides, and that'll make a nice smooth handle. Also, if you want, we can make this into a spined handle. So I didn't make one today. There's a spined handle around here somewhere, but a spined handle, I'm going to pinch with my index finger and my thumb with my wet sponge. And I create that spine, so it's now kind of a triangle. So from here, I could make it into a handle, or I could come in here and I could twist it. And now you've got a twisted handle. Okay, and I could make that into a handle. Or a lot of times for me, I like to take this and I get a piece of paper and I throw that down. That way I can easily pick it up. And now the outside has the spine and the twist. The inside is flat. We make ourselves a nice little decorative handle. Kind of cute there. If anyone's into braiding, yes?
Is it harder to attach it? So like, you know how you have it like that? If you like tilted this, like the very ends up and then attached it like flat? Does that make any sense?
No, but can you sketch it out and then come show me real quick? So sketch it out and then, because I can address it right now when we. If anyone likes to braid and they want a braided handle, you're going to take your clay, you're going to make it fairly thin, and you're going to braid it, and it'll be great. I like to see them braided and then thrown down, and that'll give you that flat bottom, which compresses the braids together. Braiding is a little bit delicate with the clay, but yeah, bring it on. Let's look at it.
I was asking like, could you attach it like that? Because I wanted to do like a bone design, but then I would have to attach it like.
Okay.
So it's not that
So, yeah. So what she's saying is, if my mug's right here, can we have something that comes like this, like a door handle, or a bone design? And the answer is yes, you can. Those become a little bit weak unless we do them from the start. So if we want the mug or the handle to be all the same width, so let's add some texture to it or whatever. We'll just go right here, add some texture, and then you're going to still massage that. And then when you get down here, you're going to massage it outward, and it'll be like that. And then when you put it on, it'll be like that. So if it's sculpted like a dog bone, like you were saying, you would sculpt that like that, add the kind of the details to it, and then you'll put it on just like that. Although it should be a little bigger than that because it should be out here just a little bit. Because you want to be able to get your hand in there. So, yeah, that was great. Okay, set that aside. Was there another one I wanted to show you? I'm sure there was.
Tripod.
Oh, the tripod mug. We'll do that.
What about this one?
Oh, this one? Yeah. So to make that, I usually like to make these without texture, just because when you cut it, you mess up the texture and then put it back together. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna cut it in and in. So you're gonna come here and you're gonna cut in. You could also cut out and out, but in and in. And then you're gonna take these. You're going to score them. Obviously you would make sure that it's gonna fit your mug. You're gonna add a little bit of slip. One side, score both sides, one side, and then you're going to bring those and put them together. It doesn't really matter what angle you cut it at. When you flip it, it'll be 90. And then we're gonna compress that. Put this on here, compress that, make sure they're there. They're there. And then from there, I like to use my wood knife and come in and really compress the inside seams. If it's a little chunky for you, wait till it gets to be leather hard, come in and you can clean that up. But this was made last class. This was made this class. If I put this on right now, it's going to want to naturally bend. But this one is leather hard, and so it's gonna hold its form. And to attach that, and let's just attach one right now. I would come in here and just check, is that a good placement? Do I want it at the bottom? Okay, if I could put it there. With a regular handle, what I would do is I line it up like this. So from my perspective, it would look like that. And I decide where do I want that to sit and how much do I have to, I don't just put it here, how much do I want to cut off? And so I'm going to come in here, cut this, cut that, and now I can put it right where it goes and go. I think that'll make a good handle. Things to look for, things that are too flat or things that are way too big. Think about where you're going to hold. You don't want this handle to be way out here, okay? And you also don't want it to be like this.
Makes you go like this.
Yeah, no. You please don't. But you shouldn't. But you shouldn't.
But if you wanted to, you
But you shouldn't. Okay, I'm gonna put this spine one on because I haven't done one of those today. Honestly, I really don't like the square cut ones, for me personally. But if you do, that's great. And if you want to do like a Western mug, like it looks kind of like a barrel or something. Yeah, you would do something like this, and that's perfectly acceptable. But that's also any shaped piece, any shaped mug handle, you're gonna want to make and then work with it and let it dry over time. So if I put that on like that, that's too big. So I'm gonna cut that in. Man, Gillespie is just rocking out over there.
Yeah.
He has his door shut. A lot of times you can hear what's happening. Okay, I'm gonna score that. One of the nice things about letting this sit out for about 10 minutes is it is starting to firm up a little bit, which means as I work with it, it's not so delicate. Do that, add a little bit of slip. I'm gonna place that on there so that I can kind of see it. It also gives me the marks on where it is on my mug. Then I'm gonna put it back. Now I like to do this on the table, and I usually like to do it so that my handle's off the table. But I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. Where are we at? There we go. You're gonna support, even though it's leather hard, you're gonna push that in. And then you're gonna push it in at the bottom. And then the first thing you do is check to see if it's lined up how you like it. A little bit of off kilter is not a problem. Line that up. The next thing you're gonna do is make sure it's the shape you want. I like to add a little bit of lift. And then I'm gonna use my wood knife to compress that. Now, if you have fingernails, this might be the only time that I say fingernails is a good thing. Because you can take your fingernails and run it around here and create nice little compression creases. Other than that, your fingernails are terrible for pottery, which you've all found out. So nice little handle, right? Here. You know what? I am going to put this guy on because I need to put a handle on here. So we're going to cut this.
You do 2 handles on a mug?
Sure.
can you do
Like a
4?
pot.
Can you do 4? And what did you say?
No, I said it would look like a pot.
said 8.
Put 2 on.
He said 8. It would look like a pot. It would look like a pot. Yeah, if you want to get all interesting with your stuff, that's fine.
Interesting. You threw one like a big 2 handles.
Just have like 8 handles in the big
Like a
mug.
victory cup.
A trophy. So this is why I like to put or keep the cylinder in when I'm doing the handle. It allows me to push on it. Okay, use my wood knife.
And then use it.
How do we do
55. We got plenty of time. Why?
Huh.
Should I end? Be like, we're done.
Yeah.
Could you do like
We'll just have fun with clay.
like a
Yeah.
horn one, or like go like curves into like a horn, or just like make like a stand for it.
Oh, a mug?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you sketch it out or bring me a picture of what you're thinking, yeah, the answer is probably yes.
Like this.
Okay, well, yeah, so in this class, it's gonna be tough on the glazing because it has to have a place to sit. So if it came with a stand as part of the mug that is glazed to, yes. But it's not going to just hold itself. Because when you glaze it, it's gonna glaze here, or you have to clean something off. Does that make sense?
That would be insane.
Because it's not just gonna sit, it's gonna roll.
Oh yeah, could you put like couldn't you just put that on like right there?
Yeah, I would.
My ideas.
Like this, yes, except for it's gonna be bent like this, so it's probably gonna tip.
Obviously, I should
So we can maybe come up with a way. Yeah.
Is there any way to make like,
Or this was kind
A round mug. Okay, let's do this real quick and then I'll show you how you can add a little bit of volume to it. And then I'll do this other one. So everyone focus up here.
which lead into the devotion.
So at the end of the day, no matter what, everyone looking? Because if you mess this up, you mess up your whole day's work. If you leave this in for 2 hours, for 2 days, even if you put it in a bag, this clay is going to shrink and it's going to suck tight to this, and when you go to pull it off, it's going to be really hard. You're probably going to break your mug. If not, it's already cracked. So I ripped this down, and this is why we leave space at the top. Put this down here. I'm just going to hold. I'm not grabbing the paper. I'm just going to twist this and lift that up.
Then you can crunch it.
And then the paper comes out.
No, I don't want.
Okay, so real quick, and then I will hurry and do the tripod mug. You ready? This is how you would add volume to a mug. Are you ready? When it is soft, but not brand new soft, so slightly leather hard, you can take your hand inside and you can just gently kind of massage that out. I have the sponge in there to kind of help, but you should have a little bit of water. This might be a little easier for someone with smaller hands or a bigger mug.
And this is gonna suck.
So I didn't do it real quick. I did it real quick, but you see how there's some volume there. So you can do something like that. An actual 360 mug with volume, there's ways to do it, but usually you throw those on the wheel. And the answer is no. You can't throw these on the wheel. Sorry.
Oh wow.
Not yet.
I mean, you could, but that's not the assignment. Okay, so I'm going to use this same piece of paper and throw out the same amount of clay, except for my mug's going to be taller.
A mug shot?
Oh, yeah. So, focus in on this. This mug. Did you just draw something bad?
no.
No.
It wasn't.
So, this mug, yeah.
Yeah, I have another question. What if you wanted to sculpt something, the bottom of the mug, like inside of the mug?
Okay.
Would you do that before you attach it to the mug?
It depends on how tall your mug is.
Okay.
Depends.
Yeah. But you could sculpt it, reach down there, score your frog or whatever, drop it in on the bottom, and it should stay. And then you're gonna add like a clear glaze to it, and it'll stick after that.
Okay.
Okay, these are the same instructions as for the cylinder mugs, okay? So you have those instructions. We're gonna throw this out. I'm gonna use the same mug, or sorry, the same cylinder. So this one. But I'm gonna make it taller. So instead of 5 inches tall, it's gonna be like 8 inches tall.
Add details in like this.
Okay, I'm gonna cut a flat bottom. A flat side. And a flat top. Now, right there. Okay, focus on me for a second. You ready? Okay. I do not need a bottom on this. So that's usually why I make it taller, because I'm going to be cutting or pushing the bottom together. I did not put textures on here, but I'm going to, just right here. It is a little thick, but it'll be okay.
Sick.
I'm gonna flip that over. I need to hurry and tape this on. So I'm gonna tape this to the cylinder, right? No, right? I'm gonna tape it to the paper. So this one, and you're gonna wanna watch this in just a second, but this one, I'm gonna make the seam disappear. The last seam on, I had show, right? So it shows, or it's overlapping. On this one, I'm gonna make it disappear. So I'm gonna roll this up. And do you see how much clay is there? So I'm gonna take, you ready? This is pretty important. I'm gonna take my needle tool and I'm gonna cut, this is straight up and down. I'm gonna cut at an angle and cut through both layers. Now I start at the top. Oh, I didn't cut that very well. Okay, I start at the top and I cut into the bottom layer, not away from. So you can see, that's away, this is into, and I'm gonna cut that at an angle all the way down, like so. The top comes off. You gently set this here. Remember, if it rolls, just be careful. Open that. And so you can see this. Whoa. That is now going to be pretty much one layer.
That's crazy.
I've been practicing my witchcraft. It is All Hallows month.
You're a very all.
I'm a wizard all the time. Why would I dress up?
Just so others are like aware.
Yeah, so that you can make yourself more famous.
You've got the practice. You just need the clothes.
The clothes? Okay, press that together. Okay, that seam starts to disappear.
The visibilities.
I'm gonna put a bottom on it. Oh, I threw this clay over here.
Oh my gosh.
Some people. Oh, wait, I'm not putting a bottom on it.
Yes, the tripod.
Okay, you ready?
These
We're gonna pull this out again.
You making binoculars?
You ready? There's a lot of people who aren't paying attention to me, and I'm kind of an attention hog.
I think they've seen enough sorcery shows.
So I'm gonna twist this and lift it. Gonna pull this out. Now, I want to clean up on the inside. make sure that my seam is really pressed together. That looks good. Now, I'm going to turn it into a tripod. So there's 3. And you can push at the seam or you can leave the seam out. This one, I don't know what I did there. Seam's right there. I usually like to push at the seam. And so what I'm gonna do, if you'll think about it like this, let's move that there. There's 3, and I'm gonna push in, and push in. So what I usually do, and you can be more mathematical if you want, but I usually come in and go, I'm gonna push right there, and then I do a little triforce action.
Whoa.
And those are gonna be my push spots. And I'm trying to make sure that it's pretty even.
Don't you cut out like triangles?
That's a different mug. So, you can cut out
Wasn't the one
triangles.
So is this the Triforce of
Mhm.
Peace?
Where it tapers in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna push here, I'm gonna push here, and I'm gonna push here. Now, I get it going, then I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna score this. Add a little slip. Do a little dance. Drink a little water. Gonna push in. The further down you push, the taller the feet are. So if I push way down here, the feet will look taller. So I can push way down here. And then I'm gonna start to kind of squish my sides together. Get those pushed in. Now, sometimes there's a hole there, sometimes there's not. There's a hole there, so this is what I like to do. I'm gonna take a piece of clay and I'm gonna flatten it out really thin. Okay, I'm gonna gently flip that over on it. That gives me my points. And then I'm gonna come in and
The third eye.
just kind of eyeball that. And then I can kind of just manipulate that into place. And I set that on there and I compress it. Get that pushed in. Still got 5 minutes, just wait. Okay, I'm gonna show you in the last couple of minutes an additive texture. But if you make one of these tri-mugs, I like to do this. I will take my truer, my little pot, I'll make it round,
The true.
and then I like to flip it over. In the bottom there's little creases. And when it's leather hard, you need to come in with a little coil and drop it at the bottom, and then use your wood knife, wherever my wood knife went, and squeeze that into place. You don't want those open. If the wood knife won't reach, get a paintbrush. If that won't reach, get 2 and tape them together. But I like to store these like this. So I'll put that on a board and let that sit like that so that it's nice and strong. Set that there. Let's do a couple of additive textures real quick. So with a flat piece of clay, you're going to come in and, let's see, I did a star last time. Let's do a star this time. Okay, see the little star? Okay, we still have class. It's not time to get on our phones. I'm going to score that. Add a little bit of slip. Put it. What was that?
Are you gonna score the mud?
Yeah, so I'm going to put this on here wherever it's going to go. Say it goes there. Then I'm going to pull it off and score that stuff. Score. Then I'm going to put it back. And then I'll kind of clean it up. But the bigger your additive texture is, the more careful you have to be that the inside pushes first, so it pushes air bubbles to the outside. So something I did last class was this one. I did a big star.
Big old star.
And then I added these little buttons
Star.
to it. So just little round pieces, I scored them, and then I pushed the end of my
Star.
needle tool into them. And those would be added or embellishment, and you get to choose there and there.
Star.
If you wanted to do a lot of sculpting on your piece, is there a point where we're gonna have to worry about how thick the clay will be with cracking?
How deep they cut.
Like cutting, yeah. At the top, yes. In the middle to the bottom, probably not, because there's a lot more clay around it that will help hold it together. At the top, if you cut and it's pretty deep, it might want to pop open.
Well, if you like, but if you're like adding sculpture, like if you're sculpting a lot onto it, like if
It shouldn't be more than a ½ inch thick at any given point. Yeah. Did you have a question?
No.
The bell doesn't excuse.
What?